football and women's football will definitely remember the star she was on the pitch, winning the FIFA World Player of the Year award, winning UEFA Women's Champions Leagues. She's since taken on the role of head of women's football at UEFA and is now responsible for leading the strategy for the promotion and development of the game. We're going to get through a lot of topics here over the next half an hour or so, and I'd love you to welcome here on stage at the World Football Summit 2025, Nadine Kessler.
Good day.
Great to have you.
Good day. Good day.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'll ask you to take that stage. 1, 2, 3, checking. There we are.
Oh, that is
Nadine, welcome.
bright stage here.
Yeah, bright lights. You're used to the bright lights, though.
Well,
on the pitch, off the pitch. I talked a little bit about your success when you were a player, and that has to be the first question. Really, is how easy was it to adapt, or not easy, from running the show on the pitch to now running the show when it comes to women's football off the pitch for the organization that is responsible for women's football in Europe?
Well, to be honest, I felt like playing on the pitch was a bit easier.
Yeah.
Playing on the pitch is very black and white. You know, if you are not good enough, you are substituted, you are transferred. Results matter. In, you know, the administrative world of football, life is sometimes a little bit more grey. So you have to learn to understand how to navigate grey and to get there where you want to get. But I think it's been a phenomenal journey, honestly, and I also could take so many things in the end with me as a player into my new role leading women's football in Europe. Honestly, I think I'm still the same person, still the same player that I was back then, and it's still the biggest goal, really, also in my current role, to bring people with you on the journey, to paint a picture in their heads, to unite them behind a vision, to make them understand their role. And that's what you do as a captain as well, no?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it always helps to have a certain status within the game that comes from excellence in various competitions and a team perspective, individual awards, because you carry that credibility of saying, guys, and when I say guys, your colleagues, I was there, I know. And I think that extra value is really important sometimes, to have people who were part of the game and breathe the game on a day-to-day basis, right? And you feel that when you have some of these meetings and you have some of these gray areas that you're trying to push. I'm sure that gives you a little bit of an extra incentive to get things done.
For sure, there's not so many people in the world of football that won a World Player of the Year award. So sometimes, do I use it? Yes, I do use it. But to be also honest, again, the normal people also don't react if you just throw a ball in front of them and run after it. So and there's no Champions League trophy at the end of the season. So how do you motivate people, right? I think that's really the key element you need to have as a leader to make change within your organization, to drive this cultural change, to again unite them behind a vision, and to make everyone understand women's football is absolutely worth cheering for.
It's unbelievable, the attention, the added attention that women's football is finally getting. How much has changed from the time you were a player to the way it is now from a national team perspective. We'll get into the Women's Euro this past summer in a minute, but you feel it, right? And the new players, do you think they understand the struggles you had? I better hope they do.
I really think it's so different, and I really do also think it's really important that we acknowledge how different it is. You know, I think sometimes we pretend in women's football that it just happened now. We all woke up and now we love women's football and it just fell from the sky. It's really not the case, right? I am not fishing for compliments like organizations like ours, but many key clubs, federations, governing bodies have invested billions in the last year to now have so many people interested in women's football who basically beforehand couldn't care less, if we're quite frank. You know, if I see my journey, when I started, we organized roughly 450 matches for women's football in Europe. We're now almost at 800 matches.
Double.
You know, but across not just the very top teams, but across all federations, younger players, youth teams. So it's really important, and it shows if you invest in the structures, you know, it will pay back. But I think it's also sometimes a little bit patronizing if you pretend that women's football wasn't there before, and now a magical recipe was found for it to be put on a stage that everyone talks about.
It's incredible because I know you have young children, I have a young daughter, and the perception they will get of women's football is completely different to the one you had when you were growing up, or I had when I was growing up, especially in a country like Portugal, which really did not invest in it 40 years ago, like they are now, and making Euros and making World Cups. And I think the aspirational element of young kids growing up, like our young families, and seeing that it's possible, I think that really makes the dream come alive. And one of those examples was definitely the Euro this past summer in Switzerland. The energy that was there. You set new records for attendance. You sold out 29 of the 31 matches, I believe. Record engagement on social media. Tell me and tell us how important that tournament was to keep going on the path that you're imagining.
Well, you know, if you work in women's football, any event, any competition you have, you need to deliver, because we all need this snowball effect to be, trickled down domestically. And Euro is obviously our North Star. And I mean, I now work also a little while in the administration, and there's some people at UEFA that work already a longer while in the administration. And I think no one has ever seen such a positive tournament, and I really want to compliment the media. I hope some of you are here who also reported on this summer, because it was solely positive. I had media calling me, one of the most critical guys calling me and saying, Nadine. I was like, what's up? And I was like, I was really, really worried what he wants. And he's like, you know, I just want to say thank you. It's so nice. I can cover 2 matches by day. I go by bike to work. And before and after, I jump into the lake. So I know now I need to now just organize Euros where there's a lake next to the media center. That's very important. But really, people were happy. And I think it was also came from the fact that players were happy. We provided top-notch facilities, top-notch, let's say, sporting conditions for the players. And look at what football in the end we found on the pitch, you know. It's been incredible. And of course, they were also carried by 29 out of 31 matches being sold out. When we told the media and others and the teams that this was our first goal to sell out the entire thing, I'm telling you, most people went pale and said, are you crazy? No one ever has done this. And then in Switzerland doesn't care about women's football, right? That was the reaction at the time. But for us, it was such an important goal. Yes, to give a nice media headline out there, but most importantly, to show that the growth is genuine. It's about Portugal, Italy, in Geneva. We know it's tough to sell football matches in Geneva, to be sold out. It's much more important than, you know, our highlight events. And we love Wembley, but it's not the only thing. It's not the reality of women's football. It's so important that at this Women's Euro, we had 35% traveling fans from 160 countries. That out of all people who were there, 50% were women. At a men's Euro, we're at 16%. So 16. Do we attract a new audience with our competitions? Yes, definitely. I'm really happy. Definitely. I have a few more arguments for my CEO. And, you know, there's so many things that I think this Euro brought out. And no doubt, it's a key driver, not just for national team football, but overall also club football.
With added success, with added attention comes added responsibility and added challenges. I wanted to talk to you about the football calendar. I wanted to talk to you about how you make sure you continue to grow and do it sustainably, because especially in the men's game, you know, there's a lot of pressure on players, elite players. Is that something that concerns you with women's players? How are you managing the balance between growth and sustainability?
So I think, first of all, I have a very clear opinion, which is that the space is not the problem for the women's football calendar, unlike we sometimes like to portray it. It's exclusivity. to find exclusivity for women's matches
on specific days, on specific times.
Internationally, domestically, that don't clash with the amount of men's football matches we have going on or other sporting events. So we all try to find for that sweet spot that makes our product not just, you know, sportingly good, but also seen.
Yeah.
So that is the one thing. Do we have more matches these days? Yes, Mariona, for example, there are a few more matches on the club level. She played 57 matches, but actually the number of minutes played amongst top players are less. Why is that? Because we have more substitutions, we have bigger squads, etc. So I don't think the number of matches is a problem for player welfare, but rather in women's football, we come right now out of 5 years in a row with final tournaments. Players need a break, and I'm sure in the panel earlier with Maheta and Lisa, this came across too. They had 5 summers in a row without a physical and mental break. That no player can sustain that. And of course, also one thing that we are not good yet at in women's football is, and excuse me if I sound like a German, but I am, you know, professionalism starts with a plan and to be ready for success. And we're too late in how we set up our calendars and set up our competitions.
I think with the increased success of women's football, there's more interest in investment. There's more interest in new formats. How have you seen the development of these two phenomena when it's having more funds, more investors who are interested in being part of the growth of women's football and development of women's football and promotion of women's football, and new formats that are also coming, like seven-a-side?
Well, I mean, there's 5, 6, 7-a-side formats already a while, right, in the men's game. It's great that there's also investment coming in on the women's side. Do I think they are a threat to UEFA or general elite competitions? No, but I think they are important in the future to keep engaging different audience, to just make everyone still, you know, part of the same world of football. But I really don't think you can compare it with the ultimate prize to be won, you know, with a competition that really changes players and teams' lives, that really marks your name in the history books or makes you become a Ballon d'Or. So I really don't think we can compare it, but I personally, if I wouldn't be physically so broken, I would like to still play seven-a-side too. And that's the only other thing I would say, and I really now put my UEFA hat aside and have just my Nadine player hat on. I do, however, question for some that we mix it up with elite football, with elite professional players. I mean, we wouldn't call Lamine Yamal tomorrow or Kylian Mbappe to come and play in the seven-a-side tournament, would we, 4 weeks before a Euro? So I think we need to be very careful with how we position, you know, the top game of women's football, because talking again about player welfare and calendars, it's a bit ironic if we then all of a sudden, let's say, change the discipline. You also don't tell a 800 meters runner to go and do a 100-meter sprint 4 weeks before the Olympics, do you? So that is my personal opinion on this, on small-sided games. But on an investor level, I think it's a key time for Europe to embrace investment, embrace new investment. There's lots of investors swirling around all over Europe, lots of interest across all our clubs. But of course, we also want the right investment. We want stable investment. You know, we want investment that comes in and says, I'm investing here because I know half of all World Cup players play in Europe. 24 out of 30 Ballon d'Or nominees play in Europe. I invest here because everyone wants to play the Champions League. I invest here because I see a business case and I want return. I have much more respect for that, instead of maybe some saying, oh, I'm going to come in and I'm going to save women's football from the bad men's team or from underfunding. I think that's a bit patronizing. Women's football is not a victim, it's a rising star, and investors only come in because they see return. They see a road to profitability, and that's totally legitimate. But I think, again, we need to be very yeah, we need to welcome them, but we also need to look very carefully as to who comes, and then point them also to invest into the right structures, right? I think it's super key that we get this right, and no doubt we need, domestically speaking, on a club level, more money to come in, but we want this money also to come in to really make a tangible difference in a women's club's daily life. I don't care about the promotional headline. Sorry, that's exaggerated. We all like promotional headlines, don't we? And it's important too. But how does it change the reality of that women's team? That is what interests me.
You mentioned about the growth of the competitions and getting more attention and getting promotional headlines. It does help to get more eyeballs on the women's game, and having the product on platforms like CBS, like Disney Plus, must be a huge advantage as well, right? How have you seen the increase in media awareness and media rights regarding the women's game and your competitions?
Well, we're obviously really excited to just kick off the new club competition cycle, and now I can say club competition cycle, because we added the Europa Cup, which again will be so important to enlarge the number of competing teams on a European level. But specifically for the Women's Champions League, yes, we see that the changes we made, similar to the men's, but not exactly the same, drive commercial interest too. Revenues will increase by more than 100%. Club will get all that money, of course. But most importantly, we signed deals with Disney Plus, but also free-to-air broadcasters like here in Spain, all over the world, which means we're on 229 countries now. So that is really important. We have a role to play as a governing body, obviously, to provide the best club competition possible, but also one that is still, doesn't invite clubs per invitation, but because they earn it.
Yeah, sporting merit at the center of it all. Let's stay with club football, and obviously domestic leagues in Europe are evolving. If you look at the top transfers in the game, all of them pretty much are on the European continent. Fan engagement is rising. European football depends on the different leagues continuing to invest and improve their own products, right? So what's your vision of the domestic leagues at the moment? And in your opinion, what could be done to develop them more and to develop them faster?
I think we are really now at the crossroads for club football, and I really think we need to get domestic football right. It's so important. It's the bread and butter of all the clubs. They need to be able to have a viable business domestically. And to be fair, our domestic leagues have taken great step lately. There's a lot of movement in the top 5. But is it enough? No, it's not enough yet. Do we want to support the growth of domestic football? And we will, through programs that we are currently planning to do. Yes, absolutely. But I really think, again, what I said about our competition, I think, applies also for domestic football. We need to get the quality of football right. If the quality of football is not right, if the competitiveness is not there, we will not grow the game. And I think that's every domestic league has to assess it themselves, but we have to be also a bit self-critical and say, come on, we have to do better, we have to do more. And because I ultimately think that is the key success. This is the key for professional football really to emerge. National team football is flying. I can see that now already for our final tournaments. They will make a lot of money for football very soon. But for club football, we now really need to put emphasis on it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And when you come to club football, Nadine, I think it's fair to say that obviously UEFA's competitions are developing clubs. And now you mentioned the new competition, the UEFA Women's Euro Cup, and that will certainly help competitive balance at European level, but then it's down to the leagues who are managing the game on a day-to-day basis to deliver and make sure that their respective leagues are competitive. So you don't have different countries constantly and different clubs evolving at different speeds, right? That is a key component of the development, that it's across the continent and across all leagues rather than in pockets on the continent.
Absolutely, and again, to be an industry beyond our own market, beyond Europe, we need to have more competing countries, teams on and off the pitch, right? That's what drives interest, that's what drives revenue. So we cannot be too short term. And, you know, I take the Champions League again as an example. I know many people like to say, oh yeah, it's always the same winner. It's not true. Since we changed the last format, introduced the group stage 4 years ago, we had 3 different winners now. The average winning margin decreased by 15%.
Wow.
So, you know, like, look at the formats and how we've changed it. Look also again at national team football, and again a Euro with, you know, 5 extra time games, lots of lead changes. Look at the qualifiers of how competitiveness has improved. We really need to get this right in Europe, and I believe if we do, then, yeah, club football will fly too.
As we wrap up our conversation, we've talked about the foundations. We've come to appreciate where women's football has come from. Some of the growing pains, obviously, that it faces, some of the challenges. But when you look at the immediate future, what are some of the goals that you have, that your department has, that you have even as someone who loves the game? What would you like to see when it comes to the development of the women's game, or the path that it's on over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think if I wrap everything up, I really want women's club football to be a viable business. That's a key goal. And I'm not talking enterprise values or valuations, I'm talking making operating profits. So then our game becomes sustainable. Again, we don't want investors to come in for a day and go out tomorrow. It's not a stock market play, you know. We really want people who help us rise the tide for many boats. So that's my, of course, key goal for professional club football. But overall, to be fair, football also has a lot more work to do to make sure that all girls feel they belong to this world. We have a lot of ground to cover, culturally speaking, and ultimately some way to go to, you know, have many more matches like a Euro final or a Champions League final, or you know, everyone knows that I'm a massive supporter of Spanish football. We have many more matches, you know, like often your national team also delivers, and where you sit in the stands, and you know, Pedro, you also said a lot in the stands, and you just see people starting to become silent. The critics go, they just watch football, their jaws dropping, and they're just amazed by what Alexia and the others do. And then I think, then we are on a good path. But we need to create many more moments like this.
Nadine, congratulations for all the work that you and your team are doing at UEFA for such a brilliant career. I had an opportunity to watch the Champions League final in Lisbon, and really saw how much the game has evolved and developed, and how passionate fans are, and also what an upset did for the women's game as well, with Arsenal winning the title for the 2nd time, only English team to win it. But I could tell, and you could tell in the players' faces, what it meant to them, and that really shows the importance that this segment of the game has gained, and a lot of it has to do with the work that UEFA obviously has been developing with the investment throughout your time at UEFA, and with President Alexander Ceferin. So thank you very much for coming here to Madrid for the World Football Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, Nadine Kessler.
Thank you.